Father Tom, I'm very glad to call him my friend, and he's one of those great men in the church that pretty much everybody knows. Reason for it is, as you perhaps know, he worked with 3 popes, Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict, and he works now with Pope Francis. So he has the history of talking and knowing the popes, but he's a man of a deep faith. And Father Tom and I spent some time together in Canada over Canadian Thanksgiving, which I have to say it's not as nice as the American Thanksgiving. Sorry, Tom. Although he really was trying. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. He invited me again. But he was telling me a story of his TV station. As you know, he runs Salt and Light TV, which is a national Catholic TV in Canada. And he was saying how the decision, he was approached to run this TV after the World Youth Day, and he had no interest in it. And it was Pope John Paul II who said to him, Tom, your job is to evangelize, and you have opportunity. You go and you do it. And that's why he did it. And I found so much hope in it, of knowing that all what it is you and I turning to somebody and say, God already gave you the gifts you need. Just go and use them. And he did so beautifully. And the other person we have tonight with us is Father Rob, who came all the way from Australia. And Father Rob and I know each other for amazing long time, about 2 days. Well, we met on Saturday for the first time in person, although we've been following each other on social media a lot. The amazing thing about Father Rob is, as you will hear him, he is an amazing artist. But the stories you listen when he speaks, you know that he knows Jesus. And that's one thing that I hope we arrive to. If there's a lot of us today, or of you today, who know of Jesus, but you don't know who Jesus is, I hope that today's talk will help you to recognize something in your heart and mind, what will help you to realize that Jesus wants to be in a relationship with you as he is with Father Rob, which he so beautifully talks about. So please join me in welcoming those 2 amazing men as we will welcome them to Theology On Tap. Okay, thanks much, Rob. Oh, you have your mics. Hey, Tom.
Now, the first thing is, if you check out our socks, Peter told us the only way we can be here is if we have colored socks. So this is the first time I'm wearing these kind of socks. I'm very happy to be back in Chicago. I came last year for the first experience, and I was blown away by it. The night before last year, I celebrated the Mass at St. Clement's, as I did last night too, and Chicago rocks. Something's happening here with young adults, and it's really a great blessing. Let me tell you about this young guy that's sitting next to me here. I met him exactly 10 years ago. It was in Sydney at the World Youth Day. It was on the Friday night, and having been a former director of World Youth Day and now the head of a TV network, I was invited that night to be in the anchor booth of ABC Television, Australian Broadcasting, not our ABC here, and I was narrating the Stations of the Cross. It was absolutely spectacular. And the ending stations, the final stations, were in the harbor in Sydney, on the water. It was nightfall, sun was going down, and the crucifixion had just taken place. And there we are doing this live narration. They're lowering the body of Jesus from the cross. You see all this smoke going up in the background. And then this young guy gets up to sing a song, Above All. Dead silence came over 250,000 young people who were gathered there. Complete silence. I remember turning to the anchor. I said, "Who is that?" And he said to me, "Some seminarian from Malta." I said, "Where's Malta? Who's the seminarian?" So he sang the song, and I said to myself, I got to go find who this person is in 250,000 people, because this guy is doing something special. I knew nothing about Rob Galea at that moment. And over the past 10 years, the world has discovered something about him. His story is told in a wonderful book. We brought a number of copies of it. They're available on the back table afterwards, Breakthrough. But it's really a fascinating, wild story. This is a young boy, grew up in Malta. And by the way, where's Malta?
Malta is in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean means the center of the earth. So it's in the middle of the center of the
So
earth.
the world revolves around Malta.
Or if you can't find it on a map, it's in Acts 28 in the Bible.
You know what happened in Malta? A big shipwreck. Paul got into a big mess in Malta. So we remember the Maltese and shipwrecks. And we remember Rob. No. Was it, you grew up in a Catholic family?
I did. I was brought up in a Catholic home in Malta. Malta's 98% Catholic. Can you imagine? There are like churches everywhere, as many Starbucks as there are coffee shops as there are. Here there are churches in Malta, like everywhere you look. Very Catholic country, but also we're famous for two things in Malta. One is our Catholicity. How do you say that?
Catholicity.
That Catholicity, like people praying on the streets, feasts and so on. But we're also famous for our partying. We love to party. We have the biggest street party in the world, hosted 10 minutes from where I lived, which is called the Isle of MTV. And the drinking age in Malta is 16. So there you go. When I speak to teenagers, this is where I tell them about the pilgrimage I'm organizing to Malta.
Theology on Tap. Theology on Tap originated in Malta then.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Now, 98% Catholic, so you were a little holy roller there right from the beginning.
Yes, I was born with the rosary beads in my hand.
With the beads, yeah?
Yeah. No, but I wasn't. In fact, my parents had faith, but I started to rebel at the age of 16. When I was at the age of 14, you know, my parents, anyone here have strict or had strict parents or is a strict parent? Okay. Some of you say you have strict parents, but my parents are like super strict. I'd go, I don't know, have a good day. I take something happened. I took a selfie, put it on Instagram. And hypothetically speaking, because if this happened now, this would be weird. But not that I take selfies, because I take a lot of them. But let's say I take this selfie and I put it on Instagram, and the first person to like it is this girl I like at school. And so she likes it. I'm in a good mood. I'm getting ready to go to school. Remember, I'm like 13 years old. And I'm putting my backpack on, and I go downstairs. And as I'm having breakfast, my dad would approach me and boom on the back of my head. And I turn around, I say, "Dad, what was that for? I didn't do anything wrong." And he'd point at me and say, "Rob, you haven't done anything wrong yet." But you will.
It's called, your father was proactive.
He was proactive. Yeah. He just made, and he was right. But so I started to rebel, and I decided at the age of 13, 14, realized that I had less and less in common with my parents. And I started to hang out with friends, do everything I could to hang out with, to get away from home.
Yeah, Rob, in the book, you know, I read the book, and I said, this ain't the seminarian that was singing there in the Stations of the Cross. There's some juicy parts in this book. Girls, drugs, drinking, stealing, you name it, he did it. And look what color clothes he's wearing today. Now, what the heck got you through all of that stuff?
Well, I think my life's just started to spiral, start to get worse and worse, and I really ended up in a place of darkness by the time I was 16. At the age of 16, I was addicted to a whole lot of things, to drugs. I was addicted to drinking, to stealing, to violence. I used to hang out with a group of friends, and I used to go into shops and I would steal stuff. But one day, something happened. I went into a shop I was 16 years old. I went with my bicycle to pimp my ride. So I go to a bicycle store. He has no idea what I'm talking about. So I go into this store and I want to get a speedometer for my bicycle. And as I go into the store, I tell the shopkeeper, I say, "Hey, do you have this? Can I get this speedometer?" And he goes to the back of the store. And then I grab this speedometer and I run out, get onto my bicycle.
Stealing.
It's called stealing.
Stealing.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I started.
98% Catholic country, stealing.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's freely given, freely received, freely given. But so I started cycling, and I'm trying to get away as fast as I can. But my group of friends cycle after me, and they literally, my closest friend at the time just kicked me off my bicycle and just stood on top of me and started punching me. And he's saying, like, what the heck is going on? Every time we hang out with you, you're getting us into trouble. And so they, at this point, at 16, they decided, hey, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore. And the only people that would hang, because I kept going out, the only people that would hang out with me were these these guys, basically, who used to sell the weed, okay? You can Google that later.
The police. And so you heard a siren when you were down there and you got in trouble,
That's
right?
Well, it was... So... It's even worse.
We've arranged that. That's the sound to accompany these actions.
There you go. That's coming out of the speaker. So, yeah, these were the only people that would hang out with me, these gang leaders, and they'd go around just causing fights for no reason. And they're a very violent group of people, and I would hang out with them. We'd start fights with people on the street. I saw, for example, once there was a guy with a snapback, with a cap, and I just looked at him, and I told Chris, who was the head leader, I said, Chris, look at that snapback. And he looked at me, he pushed me in a friendly way. He pushed me, he said, Rob, go and take it. I'm saying, Chris, how am I going to take that snapback? This guy is 30 years old, I'm 16. But he pushed me and he said, Rob, go and take it. And so I got up from my seat because I was scared of Chris. So I get up and I go and I stand in front of this 30-year-old and I grab this snapback and I put it on my head and I walk away. Now, I'm thinking that this 30-year-old, what's he going to think? What's this twerp going to do? You know, it's just going to grab the snapback off my head and walk away. But he didn't. So what happened was he went to grab my hat, but 10 of my friends jumped on this guy and beat him up so badly that he was pretty much left for dead. Now, these are the people I would hang out with. And at that moment, I remember with the snapback on my head, standing on top of this person thinking, wow, I'm so powerful. Wow, I'm so influential.
But you weren't open to grace for 1 minute.
No.
You just shut God out of this whole thing. What's going to get you through all this?
Well, this is
Only grace is going to get you through this.
This is a hint for a song.
Only grace. Cue, get the guitar. Let's hear it.
I tell you what, I think it's about song. We sang a song. But this is my story, a story of grace, a place coming from this place of desperation, a place of hopelessness, a place of violence, to eventually discovering a hope that changed my life forever. And this is what I do with the rest of my life. I'm not ashamed of the darkness of my life. I regret hurting people. But you know what? One of the things that God does is He takes our mess and He turns it into a message. And this is one of the things that sometimes we're ashamed of the darkness in our life. But if we take that darkness and surrender it to God, that mess, that very mess, becomes a beautiful message to give hope to other people. And this is what this song is about. It's called Only by Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, no longer blind, I see. I have chosen to run this race, determined to reach the end. 'Cause I have forgotten it's only by grace that I can see your face. 'Cause only by grace the eagles fly. By that same grace you'll lift me high. I lift up my hands to you. It's you alone who can show me the way to the Father's throne. Oh, I've tried to walk alone. It was to no avail. But when all's been said and done, I know that I'm too frail. 'Cause only by grace the eagles fly. By that same grace you'll lift me high. I lift up my hands to you. It's you alone who can show me the way. And only by grace can I see that I can be all I'm called to be. I lift up my hands to you. It's you alone who can show me the way to the Father's throne. It's only by grace the eagles fly. By that same grace you'll lift me high. Lord, I lift up my hands to you. It's you alone who can show me the way. And only by grace can I see that I can be all I'm called to be. I lift up my hands to you. It's you alone who can show me the way to the Father's throne.
Rob, when I read about some of the messes you caused at home, and you got involved with some gangs, told some lies, and you ran for your life one time, and you hid in your room. What went on during that period?
Well, what happened was I continued to get involved with these gangs. I continued to get involved with this group, but it started to get really violent, and it started to get really bad, and to a point where I started to realize also that this was not me. Deep down, I wanted to help people. Deep down, I wanted to be kind to people, but I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be honored and appreciated more than I wanted to be true to myself. And one day I'm sitting in a nightclub. I'm 16 years old, almost 17. I'm actually legally in this nightclub. And as I'm sitting there, a group of friends come into the club and say, "Rob, quickly get out of here because Chris, this guy, the head gang leader, was looking for you." Now, what happened was I had said a lie about Chris, and he found out about it. And so I remember getting up. It was like at 2 in the morning. I get up and I run home, and I knock on my parents' door, and I say, "Mom, Dad, you have to help me." And so my parents woke up, and eventually what I did was I hid in my room for 6 weeks. I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to school. I was just terrified, so terrified. They didn't find me. This group of friends didn't find me straight away, but they found my best friend, Daniel. And what they did was they got his head and they smashed it against the door of a hotel. And they cracked the door of this hotel, and he ended up in intensive care, left for dead. And I knew that these guys were looking for me, and I was terrified. And so for 6 weeks, I was there on my bed, just kneeling down on my bed, crying myself to sleep. And every morning, waking up, thinking of ways I could end my own life, where I would just bang my head against the wall just to take away this feeling of loneliness, this feeling of pain. I would harm myself just to be able to feel somewhat alive, somewhat in existence. And so it just ended up in this place of absolute darkness where I just didn't want to live anymore.
What did your parents think through all of this? Like, you got a mother. I know your mom and dad. I know your brother and sister. I know your dog. I knew all those people. I was at your home. What did they think when you're going through all this?
Well, my parents suffered a lot, as you can imagine. You know, they saw the pain, they saw the addictions. They would go into my room. My mom saw the drugs. She saw the things that were going on. She knew. And my dad too. And it was heartbreaking for them because they felt that they failed as parents. But you know what? One thing that happened was I was writing this book, in fact, on the first chapter. And as I was writing the book, one of the things that I did was I was writing and I was giving my mom the chapters to read so that when it was published, she wouldn't be shocked. So, and I said I would give her the chapter and then I'd call her the next week, or she'd call me and she'd say, Rob, I read the chapter. And she read this chapter of me kneeling down in my room, banging my head against the wall. And my face at this point was filled with acne. I was just so depressed. And I was just so hopeless. And my mom read this book, and I said, Mom, did you read the chapter? And she calls me, and all of a sudden she goes quiet. And she starts to cry. She says, Rob, you have no idea. My mom calls me Rob, not father, just saying. And so she says, Rob, does your mom call you father? Did your mom call you father?
Never.
Never, okay. My grandfather used to call me father. That was weird.
My mom calls me Tommy.
Yeah. So my mom, she said, Rob, you have no idea. She said, you know, when I was reading this chapter, one thing kept coming to my mind. She said, I used to see you so depressed. And I used to see you, the only time you used to leave your room was to go and eat something. So you'd get out of your room, you'd walk, you'd go and eat something, and then you walk back to your room, and you'd close the door, and you'd lock the door. I had no idea that you were on your knees then, but this makes so much sense to me, she said. She said, while you were there on your knees, you'd walk back to your room, and you lock the door. She says, as you walked towards your room, I used to walk right behind you. She said, as soon as you locked your door and you went to your room and you started to kneel down and to get in this state of hopelessness, I used to kneel down outside your room. And I used to pray. And she used to pray. She said, I used to pray for my little angel. That's me. And she used to fall onto her knees and she said, God, I'm not going to get up from my knees until you save my little angel. You see, because even though I had lost all sense of hope, my mom never did. She never did.
Is that why one of the songs on your CD is about an angel?
Yes.
All right.
I feel like a cow being milked.
Folks, we practiced this.
But this, in fact, I did, yes, write a song about this moment, you know, this moment where my mother would just be on her knees and pray for me. And honestly, I stand here today in this collar. I stand here today as a priest because of the perseverant prayer of my mother. And those of you here maybe who are not mothers, or maybe you are, or maybe you have mothers that are praying for you, but we're all sometimes have been begging God for something. Just don't give up. Persevere. Because God is able to do great miracles when we not only pray, but when we persevere in prayer.
Is your mom's name Monica?
No.
No. What's her first name?
Her first name is Anne.
Because it sounds like St. Monica praying for little Augustine when he was not a good boy.
That's right. For 30 years. So this song is called Angel, which is a song dedicated to my mama, but also to those of you who are praying for a miracle, for the angels in your life.
You are more than I hope for, and my heart is overwhelmed by the beauty of all that you are now, and my life is changed forever. So I pray that you will be happy, that your smile will last forever, and God's light will shine within you, my little angel. Let him dance over you. Oh, let him sing his song so true. Let his face shine bright on you and lead you to a place called home, a home for you, my little angel. For all that may lie ahead now, as life serves its joys and sorrows, and I pray that you will hold on to the love that's never ending. So I pray that you will be happy, that your smile will last forever, and God's light will shine within you, my little angel. And let him dance over you. Oh, let him sing his song so true. And let his face shine bright on you and lead you to a place called home, a home for you, my little angel.
After that darkness, you got involved in some church groups, quite by accident, too. You got a phone call or somebody tried to call your sister, and then suddenly you go to some youth. What happened with all of that?
Well, my mother's prayers started to work. I don't know, I was in this place, and again, I'm desperate, and I'm thinking of ways I could end my life. And the thoughts start to become more and more real, and they start to become more and more dark. And I knew deep down that I needed to do something, but I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in my room. I couldn't go out because I couldn't hang out with my friends. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even go to school. So I'm there in this dark place, and all of a sudden I hear the phone ring, and my grandma calls my mom. And she invites, this is complicated, she invites my sister to a youth group. And I'm overhearing this telephone call, and I'm thinking, why didn't they invite me? And my mom didn't bother inviting me because she knew that I wouldn't say yes. But I knew I had to do something, and this was my way out. And so I got out of my room after my mom hung up the phone, and I said, Mom, I want to go to this youth group. And she nearly fainted. She couldn't believe what I was saying. And so I decided to go to this youth group. 2 days later, I get a telephone call from a friend, an old friend of mine, who said, hey, I'm going to come and pick you up. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is a miracle. But my mom called my friend to call me. And so my friend comes to pick me up and take me to this youth group. And I go to this youth group. I'm standing at the back, and I'm thinking, these are just a group of freaks. They're just a group of freaks. And as I'm sitting, I'm watching these people, and I want to keep away from these people because they seemed really nerdy. But you know what? They seemed so happy and so joyful. But I was depressed, so I didn't want to be around happy people. I didn't want to be around joyful people, so I just sat at the back. But I remember going home and thinking, man, I want that joy. I want that joy. And so I went the week after, and the week after that, and I kept going to this youth group. But one day, maybe 5 weeks of me going, there was this medical doctor. His name was Dr. John, and Dr. John stood on the stage, and he started to preach. But he started to talk about Jesus. Now, what impressed me was not that he talked about Jesus, but that he talked about Jesus in a way as though he had just had a conversation with him. He talked about Jesus as though he knew him personally. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, you sound like you just had a conversation with him this morning. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And so but again, I wanted the joy and the peace that he had. And so I remember going home, and he said, why don't you try praying? Just try praying and try and speak to Jesus. So I go home, as I did, I went into my room, I locked my bedroom door, I sat down on a chair, and I put another chair in front of me, and I tapped the chair. And I said, Jesus, sit down, I want to talk to you. And it was awkward. I locked the door because if my mom walked in now, at this point of me talking to an empty chair, it was okay, banging my head against the wall, but talking to an empty chair was a whole nother level. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to this chair. But I would do this day after day after day. And one day, strange as it may be, I'm sitting down and I sense that there's someone sitting in that chair. And there's just this incredible anger that rose up in me. And I stood up and I started shouting at this chair.
Jesus.
I don't know the chair. I don't know whoever there was in the chair. Oh. And the Holy Spirit, Jesus, I don't know. And I'm there and I'm shouting. And I'm in my mind, it is God, it is Jesus. And I'm shouting, why did you abandon me? Why did you allow me to go through all of this pain? And I'm just so angry. And then what happens is, again in my imagination, I see like a tear fall down the side of this person's cheek. This was my imagination, but it was so real to me. And this tear started to fall down, and I got even more angry. I said, why are you getting angry? And why are you crying? I should be the one crying. And so what I realized, and then at the moment, in a split second, just a split second, I realized that this person wasn't crying because I was bullying them. They weren't crying because they were disappointed in me. But that was like a tear of knowing my pain, knowing my lies, knowing my addiction. This person knew everything about me, but still loved me. And that tear was a tear of love for me. Now, this broke me. I just fell to my knees and I cried for 3 hours. I just cried and cried. And each time, every 5 minutes, I would go up an octave in my crying. And it was to a point where I had to grab a pillow. And it started with a painful cry, but it became a joyful cry because I felt so loved. And the cry was so joyful that I was praying, God, please stop. My heart is going to explode. I just felt an incredible sense of love. And I cried there with this pillow to my face so that my parents don't walk in and again think I'm gone. And that was a moment, that was a life-changing moment. And I remember thinking, God, I want to spend the rest of my life living for this and giving this to other people.
How on earth does anybody with such experiences end up in a seminary and as a priest? I mean, this is a miracle.
Yeah,
what happened? How did you get there?
Well, I had this experience and I continued going to the youth group. I started dating. I dated this girl on and off for about 4 years. It was pretty much a serious relationship, but I never really thought about the priesthood. But when I started to consider it just a little, I used to pray, God, I'll do whatever you want. I'll go around the world, I'll sing, I'll dance, but please don't let me become a priest.
What did your girlfriend say? Your girl, that poor girlfriend.
Well, the girl was safe at the moment at that time because she knew my prayer that I didn't want to be a priest. But eventually, I was giving a concert in Italy. I started playing music, And as I was giving this concert in Italy, I see this priest walks in, and he's just so cool, you know, so full of life. And I'm thinking, while I'm giving the concert, I'm thinking, whoa, Jesus, if I'm anything like this guy, I'll consider it. And we became friends, and we started to talk, and eventually this desire started to grow in my heart. And that's what I used to pray, God, I don't want to be a priest, but give me the desire if you want me to be a priest. And so it started to grow and grow and grow. And I remember sitting down with my girlfriend and telling her, hey, I think I'm going to have to just give this a go. And it was really hard. It was a difficult situation to break it up, but we remained friends. We did.
She's married now?
Yes, and she got married 2 years ago and asked me to be there at the wedding. I was just there like, at the husband, you look after her. No, but we remained very good friends. We remained good friends, and so it's just...
Now, try to piece all of this together. Malta, this little island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Australia, a big island in the middle of that other body of water. How did you get over to Australia?
Well, eventually I entered into the seminary. I studied, and I took I don't know if you call that a gap year here. So we take a year out of our studies, and I decided to go to Australia. I went there, and eventually I just worked in this tiny diocese, which is called Sandhurst. Now we have like 11 people from Sandhurst here. 11 Aussies. And so I worked in this diocese, and I just fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the place. It's a very, Australia is a very secular nation compared to the United States. So in a lot of our young people, for example, are 4th or 5th generation non-practicing in their faith. And I just fit in there, you know. That's where I wanted to reach out to people, to young people. And the bishop there asked me to stay on.
So 8 years ago, hands are on your head, poof, Rob's a priest.
Magic.
And then you start singing all over the place. Seminarian, you're singing at World Youth Day. Young priest, you're singing before thousands of people, and you work in a parish during the week. The poor bishop to try to hold you down and stuff.
He hasn't figured it out.
And then a couple years ago, I turned on the internet, and I see the X Factor. And who's one of the people auditioning for the X Factor but a priest, dressed as a priest, standing on that crazy stage with thousands of people screaming? How did that happen?
Well, I got to audition for the X Factor in Australia. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to, this is where I spend my life. I spend my life trying to reach out to young people, whether in clubs, in schools, wherever I can, I'll reach out to young people. So what happened was I auditioned for the X Factor. As I auditioned, I intended to leave after the audition, you know, audition, boom, and I'm out. But the judges, all the 4 judges said yes. And I'm thinking, oh crap.
All right. This is big time.
Yeah.
I want you to pretend we're the X Factor audience, and I want you to do what you did that night when you came out on stage before those 4 judges who looked at you very cynically, dressed as a priest with sneakers on. Do it for us tonight. Show us what you did that night on stage.
Okay. So I got, as I said, to audition for the X Factor. I got 4 yeses from the judges. And I went on to boot camp, and I continued to go to the show. But eventually, as I continued to progress, I actually stood in front of the judges. And I decided to leave the show. Many didn't understand this. But at the end of the day, you know what? I'll just say this. I love being a priest. If I had 1,000 lifetimes, I'd choose to be a priest in each one. I absolutely love the priesthood. I love to serve through the priesthood. It's not easy. In Australia, it's not easy to be a priest. Anywhere, it's not easy to be a priest. But I think it's a beautiful vocation, and it was coming. I felt that being on this show, even though it was an amazing opportunity, could very easily come and take the place of what was most important for me. And that's not my pastoral work, that's not the priesthood, but it was my relationship with Jesus. And so this song talks about this, that God is able to, Jeremiah 29:11. Does anyone know what that's about? God has this amazing plan for our lives, but it's up to us to receive this plan that God has.
So don't you worry, child. That's the right song?
That's right.
Yeah.
There was a time I used to look into my father's eye, in a happy, I was a king, I had a gold throne. Those days are gone, the memories on the wall. I still hear the song, places where I was born. Upon a hill across a blue lake, that's where I had my first heartbreak. I still remember how it all changed. Yeah, my father said, can I hear you? So don't you time I met a girl of a different kind. We ruled the world. I thought I'd never lose her out of sight. We were so young. I think of her now and then. I still hear the song where I had my first heartbreak. I still remember how it all changed. Yeah, my father said, so don't you worry, child. Heaven's got a plan for you. And don't you worry now. Yeah. So don't you worry, child. See, heaven's got a plan for you. And don't you worry now. There was a time I used to look into my father's eyes.
Now, I want to tell you something Rob did to me a couple years ago. Really baffled me, he got me in trouble, but I forgive him now. We were in Madrid. It was the World Youth Day in 2011. We're in a huge stadium, and I'm coordinating a big prayer service with 6,500 Canadians, all of the Canadian bishops, hundreds of Australians, and we set the tone. We just calmed everybody down. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a young priest, a singer, who's going to put us in a right prayerful mood as we prepare to enter World Youth Day. So Rob comes out on stage, and I said, Rob will now lead us in a meditative song. So he looked over at me and he said, that's what you think. And this is the stunt Rob pulled on me that day when a quiet audience went berserk in a sport. All right, you can do it, and I'm going to forgive you already for doing it, okay? I think you might know what he's going to do. This is not necessarily a prayerful religious song.
So it was, I think one of the things that I find as Catholics in Australia is that we tend to take ourselves too seriously. Now, I know it doesn't happen here, but sometimes we do. We're very comfortable Catholics. You know, you go into a church and you always sit in the same place and you say sometimes the same prayers without understanding what you're doing. We had a woman, a beautiful woman in our parish, and she used to always sit in the same place. She sat in the same place for 80 years of her life. Now, this doesn't happen here, does it? And so what happened was she would sit in that chair, that same place, whether there was someone sitting there or not. And eventually she started to get a bit older and she started to arrive a little bit later. And so I always knew when she arrived because I'd hear her scream as she sat on the person sitting on her seat. And this is one of the things sometimes that I've learned is not to take myself too seriously. That God looks at us and He loves us, and He sometimes tells us, hey, just chill, you know? Just stop taking yourself so seriously. And this song speaks about this. Sometimes we just need to relax. Sometimes we just need to enjoy and to understand that God loves us. That God loves us, whether we're here in the pub, amen? Amen. Whether we're at the gym, I like to go to the gym. I find Jesus at the gym. In the church. Wherever He is, God just wants us to relax and enjoy His love and His presence. So this, if you would like to join me in this song, it's a very old song, but I'm sure you remember it.
I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. I come to celebrate and live my life, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. I came to dance, 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 dance. I hit the floor, cause that's my plans, 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 plans. I'm wearing all my favorite brands, 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 brands. Give me some space for both my hands, 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 hands. Yeah, yeah, and it goes nice. And it goes on and on and on, yeah. I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. I come to celebrate and live my life, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. Cause we gon' rock this club, we gonna go all night, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. Cause I told you once, now I told you twice, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. I came to move, 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 move. Get out the way of me and my crew, 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 crew. I'm in the club, so I'm gonna do just what on earth I came here to do. Yeah, yeah, and it goes on. Sometimes saying, gotta, I come to celebrate and live my life, saying, gotta let go, cause we gonna, like it's dynamite. Cause I told you once, now I told you twice, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. I come to take it all night. I'm gonna be the last one standing, cause I am over all night. I'm gonna be the last one landing, cause I believe it. Yes, I just want it all. I just want it all. I'm gonna put my hands in the air. Put your hands in the air. Put put your hands in the air, yeah, 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 yeah. I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. I come to celebrate and live my life, saying, hey, oh, gotta let go. Cause we gon' rock this club, we gonna go all night, we gon' light it up like a dynamite. Cause I told you once, now I told you twice, we gon' light it up like a dynamite.
Now, if you can imagine that was supposed to be the opening song for a prayer service, and I have all the bishops of Canada marching in procession, the cardinal behind, and they got to the stage, and the cardinal just leaned over and said to me, "What am I supposed to do now?" I said, "The goal is to keep them in their seats." Because everybody stood up on chairs and waving flags, and he looked over at me and he said, "Sorry, Father." One thing that struck me very much in your story is a person who played a very important role in your life, a young man with muscular dystrophy. I want you to tell us how that man helped shape you and form you as the priest you are today.
Yes, as I was growing up as a teenager, I started to rebel. I started to get a lot of anger. I had a lot of anger in my heart. But it also, at the same time, I became very good friends with a young man named Daniel. Daniel was just 1 year older than I was. And so we became good friends at the age of when I was about 13 years old. And eventually we did become best friends, but it was with a difference. So I'd hang out with him and then hang out with another group of people. But Daniel eventually started to get worse and worse and worse, to the point where I literally had to look after him, to the point where I'd have to change him, take him to the shower, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I did learn from that is compassion and care. When I did eventually have this encounter with Jesus, I recognized Jesus because of Daniel. And this is one of the most beautiful ways where we can encounter the love of God, through other people, through serving other people, especially the broken, especially the poor and the voiceless, those who seemingly sometimes cannot look after themselves.
You have a passion to go after young people in the peripheries, people who are lost. You got a way of communicating with them. Why?
Well, because I was lost. And I am here today because there were people who reached out to me. And I see too many young people, teenagers, older people, lost because they have no one, even though they want God, but there's no one who can communicate God to them in a language that they can understand. So with every breath, everything I have, social media, to making movies, to writing books, to CDs, to whatever it takes, getting on the radio, I'll do whatever it takes to give this gospel message, this message of God's unconditional love for them.
How many CDs have you done already?
Well, I've recorded 5 albums. 4 of them are available here.
And I understand, I read that they're making a movie about you?
Well, they're making a movie about the book, which I happen to feature in.
A movie. When is this movie coming out?
We don't know. It's in pre-production at the moment. There's a Hollywood company that are working on that.
A bestseller. It's going to be a box office.
We need to get Salt and Light on board.
It'll be on Salt and Light. Now, one of the things Rob also did, which has touched many of us, is he grew up in Malta speaking Italian, grew up speaking English. He's multilingual. He's also done some very beautiful music that's meant for the liturgy. And a couple years ago, I discovered one song that he did, which he told me he wrote to accompany the preparation of the gifts at Mass. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I've asked him tonight, especially for us, because there's a few Catholics here, to sing this song for us. It's a beautiful song called Mule Fidek in Maltese, and in English?
Here we are.
Here we are. All right, go for it.
So I'm gonna finish off with this song. Is that right? There's one more. Okay. No. Okay. Maybe not. But this song is about the time of the procession of the gifts, a time where we are to surrender our hearts and our lives with the gifts of bread and wine. So I'm going to sing it in Maltese, English, and Italian because I can, because I want to show off.
Sipit ng dauro lejn l-ardan U naraw is-sagrifiċċju ta' sali F'dan mument offruta lina l-kol Biex fuqek tieħu tol ta' kuljum Mulej fidek jingħati ħajti lilek Mulej fidek ma dal-ħobs u l-imbit Mulej fidek hawn ir-rieda tiegħek Fuq dan l-artal hawn jien mulej hawn jien We turn our hearts towards the altar now To behold the sacrifice on Calvary At this moment broken for us all That we may be all we're called to be Lord, here we are This life we have to offer All we are With this bread and wine Lay it down, all we are and will be before you now. Here we are, nelle tue mani consegno la mia vita, insieme con il pane e questo vino, Signor ti do tutto ciò che sono. Eccomi qui davanti a te, Signore. We're yours.
I'd like to conclude with a little thought for all of us tonight. One of the reasons why I think the world and so many people have taken to Pope Francis is because of such normal, ordinary, human, warm behavior. People call him the great revolutionary. The only time he's used the word revolution is in that wonderful document he wrote 5 years ago called Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel, when he talks about the revolution of tenderness of the Son of God who came down to us. But I think there's another revolution that's been underway in the church the past 5 years, and I'd like to call it a revolution of normalcy. Because everything we see him doing and saying is normal Christian behavior. When I think of my friend Rob, brother priest, we live miles apart, but we're in touch through social media. Rob, for me, I didn't tell him I was going to say this, Rob is a wonderful example of a normal priest. People think that we come down from heaven. People have got these crazy ideas that we're born with wings and we fly down and we're lily white and we've got no crises and no broken families and no sins and no addictions and no drinking and nothing else. I've yet to meet one like that. But what Rob has done for millions of young people, and I've seen it, Rob has reminded us that because of all of those things, in spite of all of those things, but more because of them, God is able to call somebody. And somebody's able to come forward and put all of his or her gifts at the feet of the Lord. I don't think Rob ever thought years ago that he'd be an X-Factor priest. I don't think Rob ever thought that sirens would be sounding for him all night in Chicago. But none of us have thought that too. So on behalf of all of us here in Chicago tonight, on behalf of hundreds of thousands of young people who have heard this incredible normal story, you don't hear it maybe enough, but I'd simply like to say thank you. That the Breakthrough book really moved me. I'm a professor. I read the book twice. It's a moving story. And now to show how the secular and the sacred can come together in this remarkable way, do one more for us. Okay? Do one more.
So what I'll finish off with, I will finish off. Yep, okay. This is a song, this is my latest single. I'm in the middle of recording a new album, which is a pop album, which is an album written with the intention of writing for the church, within the church, but also trying to get out there, getting on radio, and I'm collaborating with some of the best artists in the world. This song which I'm going to sing is called Dominoes, which is, I've collaborated with a girl called Ira Losco, who's one of the biggest, her latest single is with Jason Derulo. So, the one with me and then with Jason. And so, this song is called Dominoes. It talks about that we're all broken. We all are sometimes in millions of pieces. But when we surrender these millions of pieces to God, God takes these pieces and creates a work of art. Was a cold, cold night in the shadows, picking up the pieces of a broken heart. She's trying to find a way back to the light. This is not how she imagined. One decision changed the direction, trying to find a way to make it right. And there's a million people with a broken heart, and everyone is looking for change. A billion pieces make a work of art when we surrender to love. In a room, too many people, he's surrounded and yet is so alone. No one could ever know. He is smiling, he's hiding all the pain and hurt inside of him. His fire dies a little every day. And there's a million people with a broken heart, and everyone is looking for change. There's a billion pieces make a work of art when we surrender to love. 'Cause we all fall, every single one by one, just like we're dominoes. We all fall, wonder, have to find our home, and then we fight them all. We surrender, we surrender, we surrender unto the love. We surrender love. We surrender, we surrender, we surrender unto the love. We surrender love. And there's a million people with a broken heart, and everyone is looking for change. Oh,
change. Make the change.